The formal sector created 76,000 more jobs in the last 3 months of 2020 as lockdown restrictions were being eased. That's according to the latest employment figures by Stats SA. The study surveys formal businesses and is separate from the labour force survey, which looks at households and the employment status of individuals. Most jobs in the fourth quarter were created in the trade and government sectors at 54,000 and 51,000 respectively. Construction lost 18,000 jobs while manufacturing shared 13,000. The numbers continue to reflect an anemic economy. The formal sector shared 594,000 jobs between December 2019 and December last year. Now, let's unpack these latest figures, and I'm joined by Labour analyst from Tony Healy and Associates. That's Tony Healy himself. Tony, good afternoon. Welcome to this lunchtime here on eNCA. Now, Tony, there are many numbers in the employment survey, but essentially what we are picking up this lunchtime is that the formal sector has more than 500,000 jobs, fewer jobs rather, compared to December 2019. If you look at the period between December 2019 to December last year, is this the damage due only to COVID-19, or is the problem beyond that?
Good afternoon, Dan. Yes, I think primarily it has to do with COVID, although there are other factors regarding the fact that, for example, before we went, as we were entering COVID, we were already under pressure as an economy. But COVID has certainly fast-tracked the really alarming reductions we're seeing in, for example, the kinds of sectors and industries that are labour intensive, and more especially recently, as you've just mentioned, significant drops in manufacturing, significant drops in construction, and significant reductions in mining.
Yeah, now the challenge is, of course, within an economy that's not growing. What are these worrying sectors? I mean, manufacturing lost 13,000 jobs in the last quarter. So where do we create jobs?
Well, I think we've had an ongoing, for decades, Dan, we've had an ongoing high unemployment statistic, which has only been exacerbated by COVID, amongst other things. I guess to answer your question, or to your point, the quickest way to grow jobs in the shorter term would be in sort of public sector infrastructure type projects. And some effort is being made in that regard. But, as always, unfortunately, the execution is very slow. So we are particularly good as a country at having plans and long-term plans and macro plans to grow jobs. But we're poor at executing in terms of growing those jobs. And yes, the private sector has a role to play. But, there are probably a number of things we could and should do to grow jobs that we just haven't done for many years.
Yeah, another interesting stat coming out from this latest formal sector employment survey is around wages. It shows that wages went up in this period we're talking about by 2.4%, Tony, which is slightly below inflation of 3%. I mean, in an economy where people are struggling, this is not really a good increase in terms of wages. What do you think?
Well, what you've got happening the whole time, Dan, is this tension between growing jobs and wages, or if you like, the argument how is a minimum wage a good idea, and that depends on your ideology. So, for example, if your worldview is that there must be decent jobs, then it argues for a minimum wage and higher wage increases. If, on the other hand, you believe that job creation is important and is your focus, that would ordinarily tend to suggest that the removal of minimum wage legislation is important because that will incline employers to employ more. And both of those sides of the argument are quite heated, because many would say, well, if you remove minimum wage legislation, you could have people living under the poverty datum line. But if you don't do something about job creation, you're going to have more and more people in poverty through unemployment in any event.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony Healy, for some of those insights this lunchtime as we look at those formal sector employment survey numbers. Well, it doesn't really look good if you think about where we are currently with the economy, but we'll continue analyzing them, of course, throughout the afternoon.